The massive space station called Harmony 1 floated in the dark space between stars like a giant metal flower. The station was huge, bigger than any city on Earth, with spinning sections that created gravity for the people inside. Today was the most important day in human history because it was the first time humans would meet the rulers of the galaxy. Ambassador Jin Ho stood in the main docking bay wearing his best blue uniform. He was a tall man with kind eyes, but today those eyes were worried. He had spent years preparing for this moment, studying alien languages and customs. The future of Earth depended on making a good first impression. With these powerful aliens behind Jin Ho stood other important humans from Earth. There was General Sung Ho in his green military uniform, and Dr. Changmin, the scientist who knew everything about aliens. They had brought their families too because they wanted to show the aliens that humans were peaceful people who cared about their children. 7-year-old So-min held her father's hand tightly. She was wearing her favorite yellow dress and carrying a small toy spaceship that her grandfather had made for her. The little girl had big curious eyes and loved asking questions about everything. Her father, Commander Taejin, was nervous, but he smiled down at his daughter. He wanted her to see this historic moment. The alien ships arrived like thunder in space. Their vessels were black and silver with strange shapes that hurt human eyes to look at directly. The largest ship was as big as a mountain, and it moved through space without making any sound. At the front of the alien fleet flew the royal ship of King Drak, ruler of the mighty Vorthic Empire. King Drak was 9 feet tall with purple skin and 4 arms. His head had no hair, but was covered in small spikes that showed his mood right now. The spikes were flat, which meant he was calm or maybe bored. He wore robes made from the skin of creatures from a dozen different worlds, and a crown that was carved from a single giant crystal. The alien king walked into the docking bay, followed by his guards and advisors. The temperature in the room seemed to drop, and even the lights appeared to dim. The aliens moved with the confidence of beings who had never been challenged by anyone. Their eyes looked at the humans like a person might look at interesting insects. Ambassador Jin Ho stepped forward and bowed as he had practiced many times. He spoke the alien greeting words carefully, trying not to make any mistakes. His voice echoed in the large bay as he welcomed the king to meet with humanity for the first time. King Drak did not bow back. Instead, he looked around the room with his yellow eyes, taking in every detail. He had conquered 47 different species, and they had all reacted the same way when meeting him. They showed fear and immediately offered to surrender their worlds. The king expected these humans to do the same thing. The ceremony began with speeches about peace and friendship between their peoples. The human leaders talked about trade and sharing knowledge, while the alien advisors whispered among themselves in their clicking language. So-min listened for a while, but soon got bored. Like most children do during long adult meetings, she started playing with her toy spaceship, making it fly around in her hands and making quiet whooshing sounds. The little ship was painted red and blue with tiny windows and had moving parts that could extend and retract. Her grandfather had spent weeks carving it from real wood, which was very rare and precious. As the adults continued talking, So-min accidentally let go of her favorite toy. The small wooden spaceship slipped from her fingers and rolled across the smooth floor. It made a soft clicking sound as it tumbled end over end, moving toward the group of aliens. The toy came to rest right next to King Drak's huge black boot. So-min looked up at her father, but Commander Taejin was listening carefully to the alien translator and did not notice what had happened. The little girl did not want to lose her precious toy. It was the most important thing she owned, and her grandfather had made it just for her without thinking about it. So-min let go of her father's hand and ran across the open space between the humans and aliens. Her small feet made padding sounds on the metal floor as she hurried to retrieve her spaceship. All the adults were still talking and did not see the child. Moving, the little girl reached down to pick up her toy, but as she grabbed it, she lost her balance. The hem of her yellow dress caught under her foot, and So-min stumbled forward. Her small body bumped against King Drak's ceremonial robe. The alien fabric felt cold and strange against her cheek. Everything stopped. The alien guards immediately pointed their weapons at the child. Their strange guns hummed with energy and glowed with threatening lights. The alien advisors made shocked hissing sounds and stepped backward as if So-min carried some terrible disease. The temperature in the room seemed to drop even more. King Drac looked down at the small human child who had dared to touch his sacred robes. His yellow eyes began to glow brighter, and the spikes on his head rose up, showing his growing anger. In 3,000 years of ruling his empire, no being had ever touched him without permission. This was the greatest insult possible in Vorthak culture. The humans finally realized what was happening. Ambassador Jinho stepped forward with his hands raised, trying to explain that it was just an accident. So Min was only a child who had dropped her toy. Commander Taejun moved toward his daughter, but the alien guards blocked his path with their glowing weapons. So Min looked up at the tall alien king. She was not afraid because children often do not understand danger the way adults do. She held up her wooden spaceship and smiled at King Drac, trying to show him her favorite toy. The little girl thought maybe the scary-looking alien might want to see it. King Drac saw the child smile, and it made his anger burn even hotter. How dare this tiny creature show no fear? How dare it touch his royal person and then smile at him like they were friends? This insult could not be allowed to pass. The other species in his empire needed to learn that humans were no different from any other conquered people. The alien king raised one of his 4 arms high above his head. His hand was twice the size of Somin's entire head and covered in hard scales that could cut like knives. Ambassador Jinho shouted for him to stop, and Commander Taejun tried to push past the guards, but it was too late. King Drac brought his massive hand down across Somin's face with all his strength. The sound of the blow echoed through the docking bay like a gunshot. The little girl was thrown backward through the air, her small body flying several meters before hitting the metal wall with a sickening thud. Somin crumpled to the floor and did not move. Blood trickled from her mouth and nose, staining her yellow dress. Her wooden spaceship lay broken beside her, split into several pieces. Her father finally broke through the alien guards and ran to her side. Commander Taejun knelt beside his daughter and carefully lifted her small broken body. His hands shook as he checked for signs of life. Somin was breathing but barely, and her pulse was weak. Dr. Changmin rushed over with a medical kit, but the damage was severe. The docking bay fell completely silent except for the sound of the father's quiet sobbing. The other humans stared in shock at the scene before them. None of them had expected such brutal violence against a child. The aliens seemed pleased with their king's show of power. King Drac straightened his robes and looked at the gathered humans with satisfaction. This was how all first meetings should go, with swift punishment for any sign of disrespect. Now these humans would understand their place in his empire. They would bow down and beg for mercy just like all the others had done. Ambassador Jinho slowly stood up from where he had been kneeling beside the injured child. His face had changed from diplomatic politeness to something cold and dangerous that the aliens had never seen before. The other humans in the room were also changing their expressions from shock to something much more frightening. The alien king expected the humans to start begging and offering tribute. Instead, Ambassador Jinho looked directly into King Drac's glowing eyes and spoke 4 words that would echo through galactic history and change everything forever. You touched our child. The video of little Somin being struck down spread across Earth faster than wildfire. Every news station on the planet showed the horrible moment when King Drac hit the 7-year-old child. People stopped what they were doing to watch their screens. In horror and disbelief, children cried and adults felt a rage they had never experienced before. President Haijin was in her office in Seoul when her secretary burst through the door without knocking. The young woman was crying and could barely speak as she showed the president her tablet. The footage played again and again, showing the small girl in her yellow dress flying through the air after being hit by the massive alien. Within minutes, the Global Defense Council was called into emergency session. Leaders from every nation on Earth appeared on giant screens in the war room deep beneath the presidential palace. General Park sat at the long table with his hands clenched into fists. Admiral Chun from the Pacific Fleet had tears of anger in her eyes. Dr. Changmin appeared on the main screen from Harmony 1 space station. His face was pale and his voice shook as he explained what the humans were dealing with. The Vorthak Empire ruled 12 star systems and had enslaved 47 different species. Their way of controlling new worlds was simple and brutal. They would hurt innocent people to break the spirit of entire civilizations. The alien strategy had worked perfectly for 3,000 years when King Drac wanted to conquer A new world, he would find the most innocent victim possible and hurt them in front of everyone. The people would become so afraid and shocked that they would surrender immediately rather than risk more violence against their loved one's president. Haijin listened to the report with growing fury. She had been a teacher before becoming a politician and had spent her life protecting children. The idea of someone hurting a child to make a political point filled her with a cold anger that surprised even her closest advisors. On Harmony 1 space station, the human delegation was locked in their quarters by alien guards. The aliens thought this would make the humans feel helpless and afraid. Instead, it gave the humans time to plan. Commander Taejun sat beside his daughter's hospital bed, holding her small hand while machines kept her. Alive Somin's mother, Dr. Yoon Young, had arrived on the fastest ship Earth could send. She was a doctor herself and understood how badly her daughter was hurt. The little girl's skull was cracked, and there was bleeding in her brain. The alien medical equipment was keeping her stable, but she might never wake up. Again, Commander Taejun had not spoken since his daughter was hurt. He just sat and watched her breathe. His wife tried to comfort him, but he seemed frozen in place. Other parents from Earth would have broken down and cried, but Taejun was different. He was planning something that would make the aliens very sorry. Back on Earth, something amazing was happening that had never occurred before in human history. Every country was putting aside their differences to work together. Nations that had been enemies for decades suddenly became allies. Every military force, every spaceship, every weapon was being prepared for one purpose. As a global defense fleet had 50 ships that morning, but by evening it had grown to over 200 vessels. Private companies donated their fastest ships. Retired military officers came out of retirement to volunteer. Their grandchildren had seen the video of Somin being hurt, and the old soldiers wanted to make sure it never happened again. General Sung-ho was chosen to lead the combined human fleet. He was 60 years old and had fought in every major space battle of the last 30 years. His own granddaughter was the same age as Somin, and when he saw the video, he felt something break inside his chest. The general called his staff together in the command center and gave them orders that made even veteran soldiers look worried. They were not just going to rescue the human delegation, they were going to show the galaxy what happened when someone hurt a human child. Meanwhile, on Harmony 1, King Drak was celebrating what he thought was his victory. His advisors told him that the humans would surrender within hours, just like every other species had done. The king was already planning how to divide up Earth among his nobles and what kind of slaves the humans would make. The alien king did not understand that he had made the worst mistake in galactic history. He thought hitting the child would break human spirits and make them easy to control. Instead, he had awakened something in humanity that was far more dangerous than any weapon. Dr. Il-sung was Earth's leading expert on alien psychology, and he tried to explain to the War Council what made humans different from other species. Most intelligent beings in the galaxy thought about cost and benefit before making decisions. They would calculate whether fighting was worth the risk. Humans were different, especially when their children were threatened. When a human child was hurt, humans stopped thinking about costs and benefits. They stopped caring about their own safety. All that mattered was protecting their young and punishing those who had harmed them. The aliens had studied many species before conquering them, but they had never encountered anything like human parental instinct. Other species would sacrifice their children to save their civilization. Humans would sacrifice their entire civilization to save one child. President Haijin addressed the planet that evening in a speech that was broadcast to every corner of the Earth. She stood behind the podium in her blue suit, but her usual warm smile was gone. Her voice was steady, but everyone could hear the steel beneath her words. She told the people of Earth that they were going to war not for territory or resources, but for something much more important. They were going to war because someone had hurt one of their children, and that was something humanity would never tolerate. The president promised that the aliens would learn why you should never make a parent angry. Space docks around Earth worked through the night, loading weapons and supplies onto ships. Factories that had been making consumer goods switched to producing military equipment in a matter of hours. The entire human economy transformed itself from peaceful trade to total war preparation. Young pilots who had never seen combat volunteered to fly fighters against alien warships. Mothers and fathers joined the crews of battleships because they wanted to make sure no Other child would suffer like so men had old people who could not fight. Donated their life savings to buy ammunition. The most frightening thing about the human response was how calm and organized there were no angry mobs or emotional speeches. Everyone simply did what needed to be done with quiet determination. The aliens had expected humans to panic and beg for mercy. Instead, they got something much worse. Admiral Bilra took command of the main battle fleet. She was known throughout human space as someone who never lost a battle and never showed mercy. To those who threatened civilians, her first order to the fleet made even hardened soldiers feel cold inside. She told her captains that they were not going to negotiate with the aliens, they were not going to accept surrender, they were going to teach the galaxy a lesson that would be remembered for 1,000 years. Anyone who hurt a human child would face the full wrath of humanity. As the human fleet prepared to leave Earth orbit, the aliens on Harmony 1 had no idea what was coming. King Drac was still enjoying his victory feast, while his subjects celebrated the conquest of another species. They thought the humans were weak and afraid in just 2 hours they would learn how wrong they were. The calm before the storm was ending, and humanity was about to show the galaxy why they were the most dangerous species in the universe when their children were threatened. Exactly 2 hours after Somin was struck, the largest military fleet in human history appeared in the space around Harmony 1 station. The ships dropped out of hyperspace like angry hornets emerging from their nest. Over 300 vessels of every size filled the darkness with their running lights and weapon systems. The alien fleet that had seemed so powerful just hours before suddenly looked small and helpless. Human dreadnoughts, twice the size of the alien flagships, moved into position while swarms of fighters created a deadly web around the station. The aliens had 100 ships, but the humans had brought 3 times that number. King Drac was still in his dining hall eating his victory feast when alarms began screaming throughout his flagship. His military advisors ran into the room with terror in their yellow eyes, stammering about human ships appearing from nowhere. The king could not believe what he was hearing. Admiral Beora stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Earth Sword, watching the alien vessels scramble to form battle lines. Her ship was brand new, built in secret over the past 5 years using technology that no alien species knew. Humans possessed. The armor was made from materials found only on Earth, and the weapons used principles that human scientists had discovered. The Admiral was 50 years old, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much war. She had lost her own daughter in the Mars colonial wars 20 years ago, and the sight of Somin being hurt had brought back all that pain. She opened a communication channel that would reach every ship in the star system. Her voice was calm and steady, like a teacher explaining a simple lesson to children, but underneath the gentle tone was something that made even her own crew feel afraid. She spoke slowly, so that every being in the system could understand her words and remember them. Forever you have harmed a human child, she said into the microphone. This is your only opportunity to surrender King Drac and his immediate family for justice. You have 60 seconds to complete. The alien bridge crews looked at each other in confusion. They had expected the humans to beg for mercy or try to negotiate. Instead, they were being given an ultimatum. King Drac screamed at his communications officer, demanding to know how many human ships were really out there. His officer told him there were over 300 human vessels. The alien king went silent, his spikes flattened against his skull, and his 4 hands began to shake. The Vorthek Empire had never faced an enemy fleet this large, not even during their greatest wars of conquest. King Drac had built his empire on the belief that other species were weak and cowardly. He had never met a race that would risk everything to protect one individual child. The idea that the humans would bring their entire military force to rescue a single girl was beyond his understanding. The 60 seconds passed in complete silence. Neither side moved or spoke. The alien fleet waited for orders while the human ships held their positions. Like patient predators, Admiral Beora checked her chronometer and opened the channel again. Your time is up, she said simply. King Drac made the last mistake of his long life. He ordered his fleet to open fire on the human ships, expecting his advanced alien technology to destroy these primitive beings in minutes. The first alien dreadnought that fired its weapons learned too late that humans had been preparing for this war longer than anyone realized. The alien plasma cannon struck the human ship, but instead of destroying it, the beam was absorbed by strange armor that glowed Bright blue, the human vessel continued moving forward without even slowing down. Then it returned fire with weapons that the aliens had never seen before. Beams of pure energy tore through the alien ship's armor like it was made of paper. The alien vessel exploded in a ball of fire and debris that lit up the entire battlefield. Other alien ships began firing, but their weapons seemed useless against the human armor. Human fighters moved through space with impossible speed and agility, dodging alien fire while launching missiles that never missed their targets. The pilots had trained their entire lives for this moment, and they flew their ships like extensions of their own bodies. Captain Young Su led a squadron of fighters against an alien cruiser that was 3 times the size of his tiny ship. He dodged between the enemy weapons and placed his missiles exactly where they would do the most damage. The alien ship broke in half, and its crew never knew what hit them. The battle was not even close. Human ships moved with precision that amazed even their own commanders, while alien vessels exploded or surrendered one after another. The technology gap that the aliens had relied on for 3,000 years had disappeared, replaced by human innovation and fury. Commander Jae-sung brought his battleship alongside an alien dreadnought and fired his main guns at point-blank range. The alien ship crumpled like a tin can hit by a hammer. Its crew had no time to escape before their vessel was turned into burning wreckage. Within 30 minutes, half the alien fleet was destroyed or disabled. The remaining alien ships tried to flee, but human vessels were faster and more maneuverable. The human pilots treated this as personal revenge rather than just another battle, and they hunted down every alien ship that tried to escape. King Drac watched his supposedly invincible fleet burn around him. His advisors were screaming in panic, and his bridge crew was preparing to abandon ship. The alien king, who had conquered 47 species, was learning what it felt like to be helpless and afraid. He tried to open a communication channel to the human admiral, begging for mercy and promising to heal the injured child. But Admiral Bora cut off his transmission before he could finish speaking. Her response was heard throughout the star system. "You had your chance for mercy," she said. "Now you face justice." The last alien ship was destroyed exactly 1 hour after the battle began. Not a single human vessel was lost, and only a few had taken any damage at all. The space around Harmony 1 station was filled with the wreckage of what had once been a mighty alien fleet. King Drac found himself trapped on the space station with nowhere to run. His royal guards had fled or been killed, and his advisors were hiding in the lowest levels of the station. The human fleet surrounded Harmony 1 like a steel cage, making escape impossible. Admiral Bora broadcast another message to every corner of the galaxy, ensuring that all species would hear her words. The message was simple, but it would change the balance of power among the stars forever. "Let this be known to all beings," she said. "We are humanity, and we have come to collect our child. Any who stand in our way will share the fate of this fleet." News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Species that had been enslaved by the Vorthak Empire for generations began to whisper about the humans who had destroyed an entire alien fleet in 1 hour. Some began to believe that freedom might actually be possible on other worlds. Alien rulers who had heard about King Drac's victory feast just hours before now watched the footage of burning alien ships with growing fear. They had always believed that superior technology and ruthless brutality were enough to control any species. Now they were learning that there was something in the universe more dangerous than advanced weapons or cruel tactics. It was the fury of parents whose children had been harmed, and humanity had just shown the galaxy what that fury could accomplish. The human fleet settled into orbit around Harmony 1 station like wolves surrounding wounded prey. They did not celebrate their victory or gloat over the destruction they had caused. They simply waited with the patience of beings who knew that justice was inevitable. King Drac was alone now, with no fleet to protect him and nowhere to run. The alien king, who had ruled an empire spanning 12 star systems, was trapped on a space station with the very beings he had tried to intimidate just hours before. He was about to learn that touching a human child was the worst mistake anyone could make in the galaxy. With King Drac's fleet destroyed, the humans began the most systematic and ruthless campaign in galactic history. Intelligence officer Mi Young worked in the captured alien command center, surrounded by computer screens showing star maps and family trees. She had plugged human computers into the alien databases and was learning everything about the Vorthak royal family. Mi Young was 30 years old and had spent her career tracking down war criminals across human space. She was very good at finding people who tried to hide from justice. When she saw the alien family records, her eyes grew cold and determined. The royal bloodline spread across dozens of worlds with hundreds of relatives. She created detailed files on every member of King Drax's family, from his eldest son, Prince Vex, who commanded a military fortress, to distant cousins who lived on farming worlds. Each relative became a target marked for elimination. The humans were not interested in prisoners or negotiations. General Sunho divided the human fleet into multiple task forces, each with a specific mission. Task Force Alpha would attack the Vorthak homeworld, where the king's mother still lived. Task Force Beta would hunt Prince Vex at his military base. Task Force Gamma would track down the royal cousins scattered throughout the Empire. The human approach to warfare terrified even their own allied species across the galaxy. Fought for territory, resources, or political power, but humans were fighting for something completely different. They wanted absolute revenge for the harm done to one innocent child. Dar El-Sung tried to explain the human mindset to captured alien officers, who could not understand what was happening. The aliens kept asking about human demands for territory or tribute, but the doctor shook his head. Sadly, your king made a mistake. He told them he thought we would calculate cost versus benefit like you do. But you hurt a human child. Mathematics no longer applies to this situation. Task Force Alpha reached the Vorthak homeworld first. The planet was beautiful, with purple oceans and silver cities that had stood for thousands of years. Commander Jae-sung led the attack fleet toward the heavily defended world without hesitation. The planetary defense fleet moved to intercept the humans, but they were destroyed before they could fire a single shot. Human weapons had improved dramatically since the first contact, and alien shields were useless against the new technology. The planet surrendered within hours to avoid total destruction. King Drax's mother was an ancient alien female who had ruled the homeworld for centuries. She tried to negotiate with the humans, offering them wealth and territory in exchange for her life, but Commander Jae-sung had seen the video of So-min being hurt, and his heart was made of stone. We did not come for your money, he told the alien queen. We came for justice. The old queen died that day, along with dozens of other royal family members who had lived on the homeworld for generations. The humans were methodical and thorough, making sure that no member of the bloodline escaped their attention. Task Force Beta found Prince Vex at his fortress on the edge of Vorthak space. The military base was considered impregnable, with weapons that could destroy entire fleets and shields that had never been breached. The prince was confident that his defenses would hold against any attack. Captain Young-soo led the assault on the fortress using tactics that no alien military academy had ever considered. Human ships moved in patterns that confused the alien targeting computers, while fighters struck from impossible angles. The fortress had been designed to fight traditional space battles with ships that moved in predictable formations. Human fighters ignored those rules entirely, flying through the defensive fire like dancers in a deadly ballet. The alien gunners could not hit targets that moved with such creativity and skill. Prince Vex fought bravely, trying to rally his troops against the human attack, but his soldiers had never faced an enemy that showed no fear of death. The humans pressed their assault with the fury of beings who were fighting for something more important than their own lives. The prince died in the final assault, shot down by Lieutenant Dongwoo while trying to escape in his personal fighter. His death was broadcast across the galaxy, showing other alien nobles that wealth and power could not protect them from human justice. Task Force Gamma hunted the scattered royal cousins across dozens of star systems. The aliens tried every trick they knew to escape the human pursuit. They changed their names, bought new identities, and fled to the most remote corners of the galaxy, but the humans followed them everywhere. Intelligence officer Mi Young had created a network of informants and spy satellites that tracked every movement. The royal cousins learned that there was nowhere in the universe they could hide from human determination. On the industrial world of Kepler 442, 3 royal cousins tried to blend in with the local population by working in factories and living in slums, but human agents found them within days. Captain Haewon led a team of soldiers through the crowded streets until they cornered the aliens in an abandoned warehouse. The cousins begged for mercy, promising to live as peasants for the rest of their lives if the humans would spare them, but Captain Hay-1 remembered the image of little So-Min lying broken on the station floor, and his heart remained unmoved. "You should have thought about mercy before your king hurt our child," he said. News of the human campaign spread throughout the galaxy, causing panic among some species and hope among others. The Calthian Republic had been enslaved by the Vorthek Empire for 3 centuries, but when they heard about the human victories, they declared independence and began attacking alien supply lines. The Drell Confederation followed suit along with dozens of other enslaved worlds. What had started as revenge for one injured child was becoming a galactic revolution against tyranny. The oppressed peoples of the galaxy were learning that freedom was possible. King Drax sat alone in his quarters on Harmony 1 station, watching reports of his empire's collapse on the news broadcasts. His fleet was gone, his family was being hunted, and his subjects were rebelling against his rule. The alien king, who had seemed so powerful just days before, was now completely helpless. He tried desperately to contact the human leaders, offering to surrender his entire empire and serve as their slave for life. But the humans ignored his messages. They had moved beyond negotiation into something that aliens could not understand. Dr. Hay-1 was a human psychologist who studied alien behavior patterns. She explained to the Galactic Council why talking to the humans was impossible now. The council members, representing dozens of species, listened with growing horror as she described human psychology. "He hurt our child thinking it would break our spirit and make us submit," she said. "Instead, he awakened something in humanity that your species cannot comprehend. We do not just protect our own young, we protect the concept of childhood itself." The royal cousins, who had fled to the outer rim of the galaxy, found that distance meant nothing to human hunters. Ships appeared from hyperspace without warning, striking with devastating precision before vanishing again. Some aliens began calling them the Ghost Fleet. Lieutenant Park tracked down 2 royal nephews who had hidden on a mining asteroid in an empty star system. The aliens thought they were safe in the middle of nowhere, but human technology could find a single ship in the vastness of space. The nephews died fighting, trying to defend a worthless rock in space. Rather than surrender to human justice, their deaths were meaningless, but the humans recorded every kill to make sure the royal bloodline was completely eliminated. As the hunt continued, alien governments across the galaxy began to realize that a new power had emerged in the universe. The humans were not interested in conquest or empire building. They simply wanted to make sure that anyone who hurt children would face absolute consequences. King Drax's empire, which had ruled 12 star systems for 3,000 years, was crumbling as the royal family was systematically destroyed. Civil wars broke out on dozens of worlds as different factions fought for control without their royal masters. But the humans did not care about politics or territory. They had one goal: to eliminate every member of the bloodline that had produced the king who hurt So-Min, and they were succeeding with terrifying efficiency. The galaxy was learning that humanity possessed something that made them the most dangerous species in the universe when provoked. It was not superior technology or overwhelming numbers. It was an absolute, uncompromising love for their children that transformed ordinary people into unstoppable forces of nature. Soon there would be only one member of the royal family left alive, and he was trapped on a space station with nowhere to run. The systematic destruction of King Drax's bloodline continued with terrifying efficiency across the galaxy. Human task forces struck at royal family members with the precision of surgeons and the ruthlessness of executioners. Each death was recorded and broadcast to show other species what happened when someone hurt a human child. Prince Vex's fortress had been considered the strongest military installation in the Vorthek Empire. The alien engineers who built it claimed that it could withstand attacks from entire fleets and hold out for years under siege, but they had never faced humans who were fighting to protect their young Captain Young-Soo studied the fortress from his command ship, noting its massive weapons and layered shields. His tactical computer showed that a traditional assault would cost thousands of human lives and take months to complete. But humans did not think like other species when their children were threatened. Instead of attacking the main defenses, Young-Soo led his ships in a spiral pattern that confused the alien targeting systems. Human fighters dove through the defensive fire like birds in a storm. While bombers struck at weak points that no alien strategist had considered vulnerable to the fortress, shields began to fail under the relentless human assault. The alien defenders could not understand how their enemies found gaps in defenses that had been tested for centuries, but humans approached warfare with creativity that came from desperation. And Love Prince Vex tried to rally his troops from the command center, but his soldiers were losing hope. The human ships moved with impossible coordination, as if they shared a single mind the prince had fought many battles, but he had never faced an enemy that showed no concern for their own casualties. Within 4 hours, the supposedly impregnable fortress was breached. Human soldiers poured through the gaps in the walls like water through a broken dam. They moved through the corridors with purpose, showing no mercy to anyone who tried to stop them. Prince Vex made his last stand in the throne room, surrounded by his personal guards. The alien prince was a skilled warrior who had conquered many worlds for his father, but when Captain Young-Su entered the room, the prince knew he was facing something different. Human Captain was not interested in glory or honor. He simply wanted to eliminate another member of the bloodline that had hurt so many when the fighting was over. Prince Vex lay dead and his guards were scattered around him like broken toys. The death of the king's eldest son sent shockwaves through what remained of the Vorthic Empire. Other royal family members who had felt safe in their distant palaces suddenly realized that nowhere was beyond the reach of human vengeance. Captain Young-Su led a raid on the royal treasury world, not because he wanted the wealth it contained, but because King Drak's brother lived there. The planet was covered in vaults filled with treasures stolen from dozens of conquered species over thousands of years. The alien nobles who guarded the treasury expected the humans to be distracted by the incredible riches they found. Instead, the human soldiers walked past piles of gold and jewels without even looking. They had come for one purpose and nothing else mattered. King Drak's brother tried to buy his life by offering the humans all the wealth of the empire. He opened vault after vault, showing them artifacts and treasures beyond imagination, but the humans were not interested in money or power. We cannot buy back an injured child, Captain Young-Su told the desperate alien. Your wealth means nothing to us. The alien noble died that day along with his guards and servants. The humans left the treasures untouched and moved on to their next target. The message was clear across the galaxy that human justice could not be purchased with any amount of wealth. News of the human campaign had spread to every corner of known space, causing reactions that surprised even the humans themselves. The Calthian Republic, which had been enslaved for 3 centuries, declared independence and began attacking Vorthic supply convoys. The Calthians had watched helplessly as their children were taken as slaves and their worlds were stripped of resources. But when they saw humans fighting to avenge one injured child, they found courage they had forgotten they possessed. President Dalsoon of the Calthian Republic sent a message to Admiral Bilra expressing gratitude for showing them that freedom was possible. The admiral replied that humans did not fight for glory, but simply because no child should ever be hurt by those in power. The Drell Confederation joined the rebellion, followed by the Mantis Collective and dozens of other enslaved species. What had started as revenge for Somin was becoming a galactic war of liberation. The oppressed peoples of the universe were learning that tyrants could be defeated. King Drak watched the collapse of his empire from his quarters on Harmony 1 station. The news broadcast showed world after world declaring independence from his rule. His military commanders were surrendering rather than face human fleets. His tax collectors were being hunted by former slaves. The alien king tried desperately to end the conflict by offering himself as a sacrifice. He sent messages to the human leaders promising to execute himself publicly if they would spare the rest of his family, but the humans did not respond to his pleas. Dr. Hay-1 explained to reporters why negotiation was impossible. The alien king had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. When someone hurt a human child, they triggered something in humanity that did not respond to logic or reason. He thought he could break our spirit by hurting an innocent, she said. Instead, he awakened a protective instinct that will not rest until justice is complete. Your species may not understand this, but every human parent does. The royal cousins who had fled to the galaxy's outer rim discovered that distance meant nothing to human determination. Ships appeared from hyperspace without warning in the most remote star systems, hunting down aliens who thought they were safe. Lieutenant Dongwu tracked down the king's nephew on a forgotten mining world at the edge of known space. The alien had been hiding among criminals and smugglers, thinking that humans would never find him in such a lawless place, but human intelligence. Networks had grown throughout the galaxy as more species joined the rebellion against the Vorthic Empire. Former slaves provided information about royal family members, while merchant captains reported alien movements. The nephew tried to fight when Dongwu found him, but the human soldier had trained his entire life for combat. The alien died quickly and efficiently, adding another name to the list of eliminated royal family members. Some alien governments tried to protect the remaining royals by offering them sanctuary, but the humans made it clear that anyone who harbored members of King Drax's bloodline would be considered enemies. Admiral Bo Ra broadcast a simple message to all species: "You are either with us or against us," she said. "There is no middle ground when it comes to protecting children." The Zephyrian Council, which had remained neutral in most galactic conflicts, quietly expelled 3 royal cousins who had sought refuge on their worlds. The council members had children of their own and understood that some things were more important than politics. King Drax's empire had spanned 12 star systems and controlled the fates of billions of beings, but as his family members died one by one, the foundations of his power crumbled. The alien king, who had seemed invincible just days before, was now completely alone. His military commanders abandoned their posts rather than face human fleets. His governors declared independence and joined the rebellion. His tax collectors were murdered by former subjects who had endured centuries of oppression. The Vorthic homeworld, where the royal family had ruled for 3,000 years, fell into civil war as different factions fought for control. Noble houses that had served the crown for generations turned against each other in desperate attempts to survive. But the humans were not interested in the political chaos they had created. They continued their methodical hunt for royal family members with the patience of beings who knew that justice was inevitable. Every death brought them closer to their final goal. King Drax realized that he was witnessing the end of everything his ancestors had built. The empire that had conquered 47 species and ruled vast regions of the galaxy was being destroyed by beings who fought not for conquest but for love. Soon there would be only one member of the royal bloodline left alive, and he was trapped on a space station surrounded by the most dangerous predators in the universe, and they were coming for him. 3 days after Somin was struck down, the last member of King Drax's bloodline died in a distant star system at the edge of the galaxy. Lieutenant Dongwu found the king's great-nephew hiding in an abandoned mining station on a dead world. The alien had thought he was safe in the emptiness of space, but human hunters could track their prey anywhere. The great-nephew was young, barely more than a child by alien standards. He begged for mercy, explaining that he had never hurt anyone and had been kind to his slaves, but Dongwu remembered the video of little Somin flying through the air after being struck, and his heart remained cold. "You carry the same blood as the monster who hurt our child," the human soldier said. "That is enough." The young alien died with tears in his yellow eyes, not understanding why he had to pay for his great-uncle's crime. But the humans had made their decision long ago. Every member of the royal bloodline would face justice for the pain inflicted on an innocent human child. With that final death, the royal family that had ruled the Vorthic Empire for 3,000 years was completely extinct. Their bloodline, which had conquered 47 species and controlled 12 star systems, was erased from existence as if it had never been. Intelligence Officer Mi Young confirmed the elimination from her station aboard the Earth Sword. She had tracked every member of the royal family tree and marked each one as terminated. Her computer showed a genealogy chart with red X marks over hundreds of names. Admiral Bo-Ra received the report while standing on the observation deck of her flagship, looking out at Harmony 1 station, where King Drax waited for his fate. The last emperor of a fallen empire was alone now, with no family left to mourn him. The Vorthic Empire collapsed into chaos without its ruling dynasty. Civil wars broke out on dozens of worlds as different military commanders and noble houses fought for control. The galaxy watched in amazement as one of its oldest and most powerful empires tore itself apart. But The humans were not interested in the political aftermath of their campaign. They had accomplished their mission with surgical precision, and now it was time for the final act of justice. King Drac himself had to face trial for the crime that had started this war. The alien king was brought before a human tribunal in the main courtroom of Harmony 1 Station. Judge Minji presided over the proceedings wearing the black robes of Earth Justice. The trial was broadcast throughout the galaxy so that every species could see what happened when someone hurt a human child. King Drac stood in chains that had been specially made to hold a being of his size and strength. His purple skin had turned pale, and his spikes lay flat against his skull in defeat. The alien who had once commanded fleets and conquered worlds now looked small and broken. Judge Minji read the charges in a clear voice that carried to every corner of the galaxy. King Drac was accused of assault against a minor child, causing grievous bodily harm and crimes against the peace of the universe. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Trial lasted only a few hours because there was little to debate. The entire incident had been recorded from multiple angles and broadcast across space. Every being in the galaxy had seen King Drac strike down little So-Min in an act of unprovoked violence. Defense lawyers from several species volunteered to represent the alien king, but their arguments were weak and desperate. They claimed that King Drac had acted according to the customs of his people and that human children should learn proper respect for alien royalty. But Judge Minji was not impressed by cultural arguments. She had spent her career protecting children from those who would harm them, and she understood that some actions were wrong regardless of local customs. The customs of your people, she told the king, do not give you the right to hurt children. Your culture does not excuse violence against the innocent. King Drac was given the opportunity to speak in his own defense, and he made one final, desperate attempt to save his life. He offered to surrender all his remaining territories to become a human slave, and to spend the rest of his existence serving the people he had wronged. But his words fell on deaf ears. The humans had moved beyond mercy into the realm of absolute justice. The alien king had hurt their child, and for that crime there could be only one punishment. The verdict was unanimous, and the sentence was death. King Drac would be executed in the same docking bay where he had struck So-Min, so that the location of his crime would also be the place of his punishment. As the guards led him away, King Drac asked to speak with Commander Taejin one final time. The human father had sat through every moment of the trial, watching the alien who had hurt his daughter. The king wanted to understand why humans could not simply accept tribute and move on like civilized beings. Commander Taejin looked at the alien king with eyes that had seen too much sorrow. His daughter was recovering in the medical bay and would live, but she would carry scars from this encounter for the rest of her life. You could have conquered our worlds, the human father said, enslaved our armies,